For the latest from Western New South Wales, where thousands of fish have been found dead at Menindee and some locals fear the native population may never recover.
For more, we're joined by reporter Sarah Tomevska from Menindee. Sarah, you're there down by the river. How is it looking this morning?
Look, it's looking a lot cleaner at the moment. I've been told that the section of river that's directly impacting the town of Menindee was cleaned up yesterday by contractors who have been here. Well, they've been contracted to be here on standby for the next 120 days in case something like this would happen again. And as we saw over the weekend, it did. So unlike last time, the cleanup operation occurred within 24 hours of the initial fish kill. And so that sort of spared the town a lot of those really awful smells that were wafting over it for about a fortnight.
I saw some reports over the last sort of 12 hours, suggestions that the reason why these fish died was different to the earlier fish kills. Can you enlighten us at all about that? And no pressure if you can't, because I realise there's a lot of scientific advice and people who know a whole lot more than you and I who are looking into this. But what's the initial take on the reason?
The initial reports from the Department of Primary Industries have suggested that the fish have died due to a similar reason. There's been a sudden drop in temperature, which was consistent with the previous two fish kills in this exact part of the Darling River. So that sudden drop has probably caused the blue-green algae blooms that we've seen in the river to decay, and then that decaying plant matter just further sucks oxygen from already oxygenated water from the system, and it causes those fish to die. So at this stage, I don't think there's anything to suggest that it is that they've died for a different reason. What's
been the response from politicians? We've heard so much from authorities, a lot of angry people in the region as well.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's obviously piping up to give their 2 cents, and I think it's been confirmed, though, that the State Minister for Regional Water, Noel Blair, will be visiting Menindee today. So that comes off the back of a little bit of a infamous visit a few weeks ago where he refused to meet with locals. So I think people are hoping that today they'll be able to speak to him and that the Minister will be able to hear what they've got to say.
Sarah, thanks very much for joining us there at Menindee. Appreciate it. And staying with Australia's river systems, the Murray-Darling Basin Royal Commission is set to hand down its report to the South Australian Government later today. For more, University of Adelaide water economist Mike Young joins us live from our Adelaide studio. Thanks very much, Mike. What do we know already that is going to be in this report coming out, being handed to the Governor, I understand, in South Australia?
It's going to be fascinating to see it. It's a very thorough report, I'm sure. They've taken a lot of evidence and worked very, very hard. One of the sad things in the way the report was conducted was the fact that the federal government officers were not allowed to talk to the Royal Commission. One of the things you expect in any process is transparency and openness, and that's not been characteristic of what's happened so far in setting up the authority.
And there was certainly some criticism of Tony Burke, who was the minister at the time, that he only contacted the Royal Commission in the last week, and it appears that he is going to come in for some criticism from Brett Walker, the Commissioner.
It's probably better to put all of that theatre behind it. What really matters is the structure of the plan. Lisa, rivers don't lie, and when they're sick, they tell you. There's a still at the bottom of the river, you'll find a dredge. We're now having fish dying throughout the Darling or parts of the Darling. So there's things that are still seriously wrong, and that's obvious.
But this fish kill and the fish kills we saw before it aren't part of this Royal Commission, and there was concern by some that we've sort of missed that opportunity to include it.
We have to wait and see what the report says. The big thing that's been missing in all of the debate is a failure to look at what in the UK is described as a hands-off flow. What we've done is we've spent a lot of time working out sustainable diversion limits, which is the maximum amount you can take. What we have to also spend a lot more time is talking about the minimum amount and how the plan and all of the licensing systems handshake together, and there's a lot wrong with the way the licenses are still written, particularly in the Darling system. And you'd be surprised to know there's still quite a few people who don't have meters on their water that they have to take.
And what does that do, not having those meters?
That means they can't report back to the government. The government doesn't quite know what's going on. There surely needs to be a rule now, as we set up in the National Water Initiative, that simply says no meter, no take. That's obvious. And the other thing which we need is to go through in the licensing system and make sure there are rules that enable us to vary the amount that can be taken at certain flow levels. We need to have a hands-off flow, and that needs to be raised and lowered through time, and we can't yet do that in the Darling system.
I really appreciate you saying that, suggesting to put the drama behind us with the inquiry we've just had, but the reality is this precious basin, the Murray-Darling Basin, is drama personified, because it is so crucial. And what do you, how do you progress from here if this is the end of Brett Walker's Royal Commission in South Australia? The federal government hasn't been involved with it. We're seeing fish kills now and more fish kills. We just heard from our reporter that they're going to have people on standby for 120 days to clean up dead fish. So what happens now?
We have to really go back and speed up reviewing and fixing up the plan, fixing up what are called water sharing plans, which are plans that are more detailed, run by the states, and also fixing up the licensing system. So there's another round of reviews that are going to happen, but that has to happen a lot faster than it's been done so far. I was shocked when back in 2009 we were debating about how to put in place arrangements to avoid what's just happened from happening. And now we have until 2026 to fix those problems up. Those sorts of long delays are just way too long. This needs to be fixed urgently, and we need to get the detail right quickly. We know, everybody who's part of the system knows we have to manage what are called overland flows. We have to stop farmers from building structures that stop water flowing into the river, so the river has water in it. We have to have a simple rule that says if somebody wants to take more, somebody has to take less. And we haven't got those arrangements properly in place yet.
Mike Young, thanks for joining us from Adelaide.
Pleasure.
Now let's switch gears, and if you're a fan of